For more on China's efforts to protect the environment, we're joined by Jennifer Turner, Director of the China Environment Forum at the Woodrow Wilson Center. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, glad to be here.
So how would you say things have really changed in China in terms of how it addresses its environmental concerns?
So how it's addressing it? Well, I mean, we have seen over the past 4 years, we've had this troika of action plans, right? Air, water, and soil, strengthened laws. And now we have the Ministry of Environmental Protection, new name, expanded. It's quite exciting. I mean, but what they've been doing is that there's been mainly top-down. A lot of top-down pressure on local governments that not only do they have clear standards on how much they can emit and that they need to monitor, need to be transparent, move out your coal-fired power plants, and also if you don't do all this, we're going to cut your development funding. I mean, it's been fairly productive. I mean, we've seen blue skies in Beijing and complaints are down. So it's starting. We'll say, I think, on the air front that maybe they're starting to win that battle, but there are a lot more left.
And let's look at some of those battles. What would you say are the major challenges that still remain? What are the top priorities for China's environment?
Well, I mean, going to go 2 tracks on this. One is that, I mean, obviously, water and soil pollution. I mean, they're starting to get at stopping new pollutants into the water and soil. But on terms of cleanup, I really don't see a path out for them yet, because they're still working on trying to stop what's going in. Industrial pollution has been a huge challenge into the soil and water. And that's why over the past 4 years, you saw the Ministry of Environmental Protection. I don't know if you heard about these huge strike campaigns where thousands of industries were inspected and some closed and fined. But the backstory in that is that to do that, the Ministry of Environmental Protection, which was understaffed, low paid, that a lot of the people in Beijing had to go out to the provinces to do this. And this is not a way to kind of run the Ministry of Environmental Protection in such a country. So that's why I was particularly excited to hear about this new ministry. And let's just hope that there are actually more people and money in it.
And let's look at that ministry, this new Ministry of Ecological Environment. How do you see that furthering China's environmental goals as it tends to expand and include climate change and other initiatives?
Well, I think that, I mean, the climate change bit was most interesting to me in that because for years, the Ministry of Environmental Protection was really sidelined. But when you think if coal and cars are the main source of CO2, well, they're also major polluters in the other way. And when they separated them, it meant that they couldn't get a lot of things off the ground, like the carbon cap and trade program. That was supposed to start at the end of last year. But then the key now, too, is that whether or not, okay, you have more people and you have more money, but whether or not you really have the muscle. And so if Xi Jinping and the Communist Party, really are going to go behind this new ministry, we might see some action. Because before, it was the National Development Reform Commission that did all the climate.
Now, in terms of seeing that action going from proposals to really seeing it on the ground, what still needs to happen?
Well, I mean, another part is also just funding, right? Beijing, they were able to lower their particulate matter 25% as was required by law, but they spent $121 billion in doing this, right? And this is not sustainable to just throw tons and tons and tons of state money. And so they've been kind of experimenting now in the last couple of years on green financing. Did you know that China's #2 in issuing green bonds in the world?
That's right.
Yeah, and so but the challenge is, though, they're issuing these bonds, but a lot of banks in China don't necessarily know how to use these tools, don't know how to evaluate what is green. Big debate whether or not cleaner coal plants, are those green? And so there's a little, some of those those problems need to be worked out, but also the other thing that needs to be happening more of is also just, bottom up, getting the citizens more involved. I mean, we've seen certain groups like Green Hunan, an NGO, and in Changsha that has 500 citizen volunteers who go out and monitor the rivers, and they've become an early warning system for the local Environmental Protection Bureau. So this kind of bottom-up stuff has to continue too.
So then looking ahead, tell us about some of the innovations or some of the exciting trends that you're seeing to really modernize China's approach to how it handles the environment.
Well, I mean, I think that, some of it we've touched on already. I mean, the fact that they're working on the green finance so that not everything comes from the state. I think too that trying to encourage, companies, they're putting pressure more on companies. I mean, maybe that doesn't seem very innovative, but in China to try to get the companies to actually, pay more pollution taxes and trying to create more incentives. I mean, that's kind of standard how we do it in the United States, that we either tax or fine. But in China, it's kind of a big innovation for them that they have environmental tax, carbon taxes coming up, trying to use market mechanisms. I mean, they're still a bit in the beginning stages, but I think that's where they're going to have to get more successful.
All right, always good to have you on. Jennifer Turner there of the China Environment Forum at the Woodrow Wilson Center.